Nocturnal Recaps here. Today I'm going to tell you about one of the most disturbing anti-war movies ever made called Come and See. Spoilers ahead.
Как ты думаешь, зачем, ради чего сделан ваш фильм?
Чтобы не было войны.
Belorussia, 1943. A grumpy village headman yells at local children for digging sand on a former battlefield and demands that they come out and receive their punishment. But without getting an answer, he leaves. Two village boys, including the main character of the movie named Flora, come out of their hiding places, and despite the old man's warnings, continue digging. They are looking for weapons to join the partisans, a local resistance cell against the German occupation. Suddenly, a German patrol passes by, and they hide in the previously dug holes. There, Flora fumbles for something and pulls out a rifle. Hiding his find in his pant leg, he goes home satisfied. At home, Flora's mother begs him not to join the resistance and stay home, fearing that the Germans will find out about Flora's deed and punish the whole village. But the boy has already made up his mind.
Ну что вы, мама? Все же идут. А я что?
Soon, two partisans dressed in German uniforms arrive to take Flora into the forest. The boy, dressed in his best clothes, packs up with a broad smile on his face. The partisans act out a small scene as if they were making an arrest. They throw Flora into a cart and take him away into the woods. Arriving at the resistance camp, he joins a group photo and afterward goes on his first sentry shift. At night, a commander named Kosach comes to Flora's post. The commander punishes the guy by assigning him an extra shift for not firing when he didn't hear the password. Kosach leaves, and a girl in a dress comes to Flora. She asks the boy where Kosach went and goes off to find him. The next day, the same girl arrives at the general formation and looks at Kosach with loving eyes, but he averts his gaze and the girl runs away. Kosach asks the partisans if there are any that can't go on the mission today. An old man comes out of formation and says his boots are all worn out, and Kosach orders Flora to switch with the old man since the guy is staying behind. Upset, Flora runs off in tears deep into the woods where he meets the crying girl. After crying together for a while, they get to know each other. The girl introduces herself as Glasha. Flora asks why she dressed up like that in front of the formation. Suddenly, the girl stands up and humiliates Flora for being left behind.
Пожалели мальчика.
Мяне? Як бы я кого не пожалел.
Saddened by Kosach's departure, the girl gives a monologue about love, addressing Flora as Kosach.
Я любить хочу, рожать.
Afterward, she kisses the guy, but Flora quickly pushes her away. Moment later, they spot a German airplane dropping a paratrooper, and at the same moment, an artillery bombardment begins. The Germans bombard the Soviet camp, and one of the shells falls near Flora, and he gets a concussion. Glasha takes Flora's hand, and together they hide in one of the craters from the German soldiers exploring the area. When the danger is over, they hide from the rain in an improvised shelter made of spruce branches, huddled together to keep warm. In the morning, they decide to return to Flora's village for a breather. The village is unaccustomedly quiet, which makes Flora anxious. But when he notices smoke from a chimney, he runs home thinking his family is inside. Not meeting anyone inside, he thinks that they have left and invites Glasha to the table. The girl immediately notices the huge amount of flies and scattered toys on the floor. Flora takes out the soup from the stove, which has not yet cooled down, and treats Glasha, but the girl feels sick. Unable to cope with the anxiety, the boy runs outside, where he says he knows where everyone has gone. They went where the Germans would never go, to an island in the middle of a swamp. Taking the rifle with them, they run towards the swamp, and Glasha notices a pile of half-naked bodies lying near one of the houses. Flora drags the girl across the swamp, assuring him that his family is here. After nearly drowning, they still manage to reach the shore. On the shore, Glasha informs Flora that his family is dead. Not wanting to hear the bitter truth, Flora pushes the girl back into the water but immediately tries to help her. A passing man named Rubej notices all this and rushes to the girl's aid. After getting out of the water, Glasha tells him about the boy's tragedy. Rubej leads the two teenagers to the other refugees, where they tell Flora what exactly happened to his family. They approach the half-burnt village headman, and the man, on his last breath, says that they shouldn't have dug there and that they killed everyone with it. Unable to bear what they hear, the boy runs away and buries his head in the dirt, trying to escape from reality. Sometime later, Flora recovers from the shock and one of the locals gives him a haircut. Meanwhile, a group of refugees makes an effigy of Hitler out of clay and the whole village spits on it. The local men decide to go in search of supplies and take Flora with them. At parting, Glasha asks Flora not to blame himself, but the boy says that it is all his fault. The next day, they set up a spitting effigy of Hitler at the crossroads and go to a German warehouse to get supplies, but they fail. They decide to make another attempt at a sortie for supplies, but the two men who have fallen behind Flora and Rubej are blown up by a landmine. After checking what is left of their comrades, they continue on their way. Toward evening, they arrive in one of the occupied villages, and at rifle point, they force a local collaborationist to open the stable and give them a cow. Under the cover of dusk, they manage to escape with the cow. They retreat some distance away and, suffering from hunger, decide to milk the cow. Suddenly, the Germans launch a flare and open fire on them. The first machine gun burst proves fatal for Rubej. Flora tries to escape with the cow, but the Germans open fire again and the cow suffers the same fate as Rubej. Hiding behind the cow, Flora begins to cry and, exhausted, falls into sleep. When Flora wakes up in the morning, he notices that the field is covered with a thick fog. He tries to drag the cow away, but the cow is too heavy for it. Walking through the thick fog, he notices a horse with a cart and tries to get it to carry the meat. The cart owner tries to stop him, but Flora threatens him with a rifle that has a shattered butt from yesterday's gunfire. Suddenly, they hear the sound of trucks passing by, and the cart owner helps Flora hide his rifle before the German soldiers arrive. The old man puts Flora on the cart and drives to the village. He tells Flora to pretend to be his grandson, as the Germans are on the prowl looking for the partisans that stole the cow. They manage to sneak into the village just before an entire German division arrives there. The old man introduces Flora to his entire family and neighbors. A German officer enters the house, and the locals invite him to the table, pouring him alcohol. Flora hears the command to all the villagers to go outside to get a German passport. Flora goes outside and sees the villagers being herded into the center of the village. Flora yells at them to run away, but he is caught by one of the German sympathizers and pushed into the rest of the people. The scene is chaotic. The villagers scream desperately while the Germans push them into a large barn and lock it. One of the villagers tries to look out the window to see what's going on, but gets shot. The crowd begins to panic, knowing what might follow, but they are calmed by gunfire from one of the German sympathizers. After that, the German officer says they can go out the window, but without the children. The people scream in terror, but Flora decides to seize the opportunity and climbs out through the window. Outside, he sees hundreds of heavily armed soldiers, led by a German general with a lemur on his shoulder. A mother with her child climbs out through the window, but the soldiers take the boy away and throw him back into the barn, while the mother is dragged away by her hair. A few minutes later, it becomes clear why the Germans have gathered all the people in one place. The soldiers throw grenades and Molotov bombs inside, after which they also set the barn on fire with a flamethrower. Some of the survivors try to break down the door to escape, but the soldiers, baying with infernal laughter, fire on the barn. Flora, whose appearance has already changed a lot because of his experiences, watches everything, unable to do anything about it. The Germans begin to leave the village, along the way setting fire to everything in their path. A German sympathizer drags Flora to a German officer who holds a gun to his head to take a picture in front of a burning barn. After taking the picture, they leave Flora alone, and he passes out. As they leave the village, German soldiers push a woman who was trying to save her son into a truck to have fun with her. The last of the departing soldiers carry the helpless old woman outside and tell her to look after the welfare of the village. From a naive, smiling teenager, Flora has turned into an old man who has been through the hell of war. He passes by a wrecked German motorcycle and takes bandages from a bag lying nearby. Then goes into the field to find his rifle and repair the buttstock with bandages. Resistance forces under the command of Kosach had already arrived at the site of the burned village and defeated the Germans. Flora hears a low whistle and sees the same girl the Germans pushed into the truck with a whistle in her lips walking towards him. Seeing the girl's condition, Flora repeats the words that Glasha once told him.
Любить, рожать.
Flora takes a canister of gasoline and goes to the bridge under which the partisans gathered the surviving Germans. The German general, through an interpreter, asks to be spared because he was just following orders. He pretends to be an innocent old man who just wants to take care of his children and grandchildren. Flora comes up and says they're the ones who said you can leave without the children. The German officer confirms what Flora said and says that none of these men deserve to live. Flora brings a can of gasoline to the German sympathizer, and he begins to douse the Germans sitting next to him. But before the fire could light up, the partisans start shooting at them, avenging all the crimes they had committed. The resistance fighters leave, but Flora notices a portrait of Hitler lying in the water and starts shooting at it. The chronology of the events of the Second World War begins to go backward, and Flora continues to shoot at the symbol of absolute evil. As he pulls the trigger over and over again, the events rewind further and further into the past, until we see a picture of little Hitler sitting in his mother's arms, and Flora stops, unable to shoot anymore.